Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Earl.
And I'm Will Garcia.
And together we're the Hoops Guys. And today we'll be continuing our 2014-2015 NBA season previews by discussing the winningest franchise in NBA history, 17 championships. A lot of them orchestrated by that man's
and
jersey
these guys
behind me, Red Auerbach, the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, but they were not the winningest team last year.
No.
25 and 57. Ouch.
Yeah.
They did get the 6th pick in the draft, though. Got Marcus Smart. We'll talk about him later. So it wasn't like it was all for naught, but I'm sure Celtics fans would have appreciated a better season.
Yeah, although speaking of Celtics fans and appreciation, I'm betting a lot of Celtics fans are really appreciating Brad Stevens as head coach.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, he may be one of the top 5 long-term franchise-level assets in the entire NBA, alongside Aaron Nelson and the Suns training staff, the Spurs brain trust, LeBron James, and Mikhail Prokhorov's predilection for giving out blank checks.
Yeah.
Stevens is that promising a head coach.
Absolutely. For a first year, he had this team playing well, much better than their record indicated. So, of course, there were going to be a few good things, and some of them happened on offense, where the Celtics tied for 6th in offensive rebound percentage, 10th in mid-range field goal percentage, and they also finished 10th in free throw percentage.
Yeah, and on defense, the Celtics were really, really good at defending three-pointers. They finished 6th in corner three-point true shot attempts defensively, at 2nd in corner 3 field goal percentage defensively, 4th in above the break threes given up to opponents, and 11th in three-point percentage from above the break.
Yeah, but a lot of stuff has to go bad for you to finish with under 30 wins.
Yes. One of the major things that went bad were injuries, more specifically injuries to their projected starting backcourt, Avery Bradley and Rajon Rondo. Bradley missed 22 games, and Rajon missed all but 30 games last year.
Yeah, and a couple more bad things happened on the offense as well. It was kind of a laundry list of problems. The team was 27th in offensive rating, 28th in effective field goal percentage, 26th in XPPS, 28th in actual PPS. Shout out to Ian Levy. Link to all that fun XPPS stuff in the description box below. Gotta check it out. 24th in restricted area field goal percentage, 23rd at in the paint shot attempts, 27th at field goal percentage for in the paint shot attempts, 25th in mid-range shot attempts. That means like really high in terms of shooting a lot of mid-range jumpers.
Yarp.
28th and above the break three-point percentage. They tied for 24th and taking care of the ball with turnover percentage. They were only 23rd at free throws per field goal attempt. That's a lot of bad.
Catch a breath. Yes, there you go. All right. It wasn't just on offense that the Celtics had some struggles, though. Defensively, they were below average, finishing 18th in defensive rating. A large part of this is due to the lack of rim protection, as they were 29th in restricted area true shot attempts defensively and 22nd at in the paint defensive field goal percentage, as opponents really weren't afraid to take it to the rim, and they converted their looks in the paint when they did. On top of that, the Celtics were tied for 20th at defensive free throw per field goal attempt, where they basically ushered the opponent to the free throw line a bit too often.
Yeah.
And teams also shot really well from mid-range against them, as evidenced by them finishing 26th in mid-range defensive field goal percentage.
Yeah, one guy who is starting to get a bit of a living himself from the mid-range is Rajon Rondo, who happens to be kind of the face of this franchise now. Definitely the superstar on this team. He isn't really a scorer, but as a playmaker and a facilitator and a defender, definitely one of the best in the business doing it.
Definitely.
And as a rebounder, for a 6-foot point guard, really, really good for that too. Career averages of about 5 boards per game, which, considering how slight he is, and considering that he's a point guard, and considering that he's a short point guard at that, that's nothing to sneeze at.
I will say this is a reason why height doesn't matter as much as wingspan.
Yes.
I believe Rondo's wingspan is like 6'9".
True.
So
he isn't necessarily tall, but he is long.
yes.
And speaking of things that Rajon Rondo is, he's also on an expiring contract. And given that this is a rebuilding team and he's a superstar, it'll be interesting to see how this season plays out.
Yeah. Given Rondo's absence last year, a lot of the offensive responsibility fell on Jeff Green's shoulders last year.
Yeah.
Not a facilitator.
Not at all.
Like Rondo, but he had a career year scoring-wise last season. He posted career highs in points per 36 at 17.7 points on the highest usage rate of his career, 23.6%, all while reducing his fouls per game. So he had a pretty good year.
Yeah.
He's interesting because he brings a lot of versatility to Brad Stevens, as he's really solid both on and off the ball on both sides of the court, offensively and defensively, and he can play either forward spot. So he brings a lot of versatility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another player who's going to see minutes at the forward spots, more specifically at the 4, Jared Sullinger. Sully improved in a variety of ways in his sophomore NBA campaign. He increased his three-point attempts and three-point percentage, trips to the free throw line per game, points per 36, offensive rebound rate, assist rate, minutes, and usage. He's a guy who can score in the post and has shown the potential. I'm not saying he's great from 3 yet, but he's shown the potential to stretch the floor a bit from the 4 spot, even if that three-point percentage isn't quite nice yet.
Absolutely. And he's one of those guys with what you like to call the Chris Farley athleticism.
Yes.
Where
yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't really expect it from looking at him, but the guy can, and at least what I've seen out of him, he isn't like a slouch. You know, he can
graceful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So pretty mobile for a big man. Got good feet. One guy who I wouldn't exactly call mobile would be Kelly Olynyk, but he did have a solid rookie season. He put up 9 and 5 on 55% true shooting in about 20 minutes per game. And he's really one of the few stretch 5s in basketball. He shot 35% from 3 his rookie year, and he was a rookie, so it's probably only going to get better, hopefully.
That's impressive for a rookie big to shoot near league average.
Especially considering that he has a reputation as a perimeter shooter, so a lot of them were contested. I think it's a really rare skill set, and the Celtics definitely benefit from him offensively. But defensively, let's just not talk about it.
Yeah, when it comes to defense on the Celtics, one guy we do like to talk about, and he happens to be one of my favorite players in the entire NBA, Avery Bradley.
Yeah.
Not only is he a damn good man and team defender, but he brings this incredibly rare and valuable defensive skill set to the table that very few people have. And that's the ability to act essentially as a one-man full-court press.
Yep.
Having a player capable of pressuring the ball handler so much that he manages to carve some much-needed seconds off that shot clock before the offense is even initiated is immensely valuable. When offenses get started later in the shot clock, they have a tendency to scramble a bit more, which generally translates into more rushed and inefficient looks. So you can see how Bradley's unique skill set can be particularly advantageous for the Celtics defensively. And on top of that, he's not a zero on offense, at least not anymore. He's become quite a good shooter from both mid-range and the 3. While he's still not a strong shot creator, his offensive improvement off ball has made him one of the best tertiary options. We're talking third, fourth, fifth option where you don't really run a lot of plays for him, but the looks that he does get, he's going to convert very efficiently. And I believe because of the offensive and defensive impact that he has, he's one of the best two-way impact guards in the league, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And a guy that Celtics fans are hoping can be a really good two-way impact player is Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart was the 6th pick in the draft, and for understandable reasons. He's this big, physical, WWE wrestler-looking type point guard who can play this really high-octane, pressure, aggressive style defense. And he's really mobile despite looking more like, let's say, The Rock than Chris Paul. Having said that, there are some holes in the guy's game. Right now, a 3-point shot from this guy is basically a live ball turnover. Dude can't shoot. 29% from 3 in college, just like Josh Smith numbers, man. Step it up. And then it doesn't help that he takes some questionable sort of shots. Not saying he isn't a good facilitator, but more so shot selection and perimeter shooting are going to be big problems. And anytime you're a point guard, that top of the key area, slightly out above the break, is usually where you're operating from, and if you can't shoot from there, it makes it kind of hard to set your game up, especially considering that Marcus Smart, despite the hype, looking at his combine numbers, he isn't really an elite athlete.
Yeah, he's more of a physical Darren Williams type than he is a blur, hyper athletic Ty Lawson type point guard. He's much more that physical guy than necessarily an athletic guy, I think.
Right. And there are some questions about whether or not this guy is a 1 or a 2. Personally, I think that because of most of his skill sets rely on being on ball, he would have to learn how to operate off ball to become a shooting guard. But none of that really matters right now because the dude has a sprained ankle and a bone bruise, and he's going to be out for about a month.
Yeah. The nice thing is, as scary as it was seeing him taken off in that stretcher, it's just the bone bruise and the sprain, so it's not something that's going to be like a broken leg type thing like we saw with Julius Randle and the Lakers, so at least there's that.
Yep. One guy who has 2 functioning legs right now is Evan Turner, but he also takes questionable shots. Evan Turner is a chucker. Let's just call a shovel here. During his stints in Philly and Indiana, he kind of confirmed that notion. And it isn't exactly undeserved. The guy has a career true shooting percentage of 49 and a career 3-point percentage of 32. This guy isn't really equipped to take on a large scoring role. Having said that, as a facilitator, he's a bit better. He does have a tendency to play a bit out of control sometimes, but for a wing player, he does have above average court vision. So he does have skills he can bring and ways he can contribute. And I'm pretty sure that if anyone can utilize this guy correctly, it's Brad Stevens.
Yeah, another guy that we're sure Brad Stevens is going to be able to utilize correctly is Tyler Zeller, coming over from the Cavs in that trade. He's a legit 7-footer whose mere size should help function as a rim deterrent for this Celtics team that could really use one and have been kind of looking for one for a while. He's not an elite rim protector, but just having a legit 7-footer. And I mean, I know Olynyk is technically a 7-footer, or at least darn close, but Olynyk isn't the same type of 7-footer that Zeller is.
I mean, Matt Bonner is almost a 7-footer too.
Exact. Matt Bonner is, yeah. So it's one of those kind of, the offense is going to perceive Zeller being there at the rim a little differently than they would if it was Olynyk. But on top of that element, offensively, he runs the floor very well in transition, and last season he flashed some really interesting shooting ability from mid-range.
Yeah.
So he should fit in pretty well with the Celtics and what Brad Stevens is trying to have his team do.
Yeah, and another guy who was supposed to be a shooter, James Young. He's their other rookie. They took him in the first round as well. Having said that, he kind of struggled from the perimeter in college. He came into Kentucky with a sort of reputation as a knockdown shooter, but he only wound up shooting 35% from 3. Could be sample size. Those 35-ish game seasons definitely lend themselves to statistical noise.
Yes.
But it might also be that he isn't quite the knockdown shooter that he was cracked up to be. If it's the latter, there aren't too many ways right now that James Young can contribute. So far, he's only played in one game, and even then, it was 6 minutes of garbage time. So I don't think that James Young is really making that big of a contribution this year, barring injuries. But he's 19 years old. He hopefully has an all right jump shot. And I think that if he improves his game, he can have the opportunity to definitely contribute down the road.
Yeah. One guy who won't be able to contribute down the road or this season because he's no longer a Celtic is Chris Humphries.
Yeah.
He's a very strong rebounder and finisher at the rim for the Celtics last season, but this season he'll be bringing those skills to the Washington Wizards. Given the presence of Sullinger, Olynyk, Zeller, and even veteran Brandon Bass, not to mention the fact that Jeff Green can shift down to the 4 for stretches, I don't think the Celtics are really going to feel his absence too strongly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of absences, hopefully the Celtics team doesn't have absences like Rondo's and Avery Bradley's last year due to injuries. And one of the things that we're starting to see more and more with research coming out is that rest really impacts risk of injury. And we track a thing here called rest differential, which is basically just looking at all of the road back-to-backs, 3 games and 4 nights, 4 games and 5 nights that a team plays over the course of the season compared to their opponents.
Yep.
And the Celtics have a negative 14 rest differential, which basically means that over the course of the season, they're going to be less rested than their opponents, which could mean slightly greater injury risk as well as less consistent performance or production.
Yep, but one thing that is consistent is our segment called 5 Questions, and it's consistent because we've been doing it 22 times now in every single video. So it's basically what it sounds like. We ask each other 5 questions about things we otherwise wouldn't have been able to get to. So I have the first question for Josh, and it is, people made fun of that Avery Bradley contract when it first came out. Everyone thought he was so overpaid at 4 years and $32 million. Having said that, with the things we're starting to see now with not only free agency but with contract extensions, do you think that people were right to make fun of this deal, or do you think it's a good deal?
Well, I think it's a good deal, but I get why people made fun of it or denigrated it, and it's a perception thing. Bradley, like I mentioned, is not a shot creator. He's not a scorer per se, even though it's very conceivable that he winds up being one of the 2 or 3 top scorers for the Celtics this year. He's not a primary scorer. And points per game are the things that drive player value, at least in terms of perception, in the NBA.
Yep.
And defensively, we have some more things available now that let us get a better idea of what's going on defensively, but those things are still tough to parse, or they're kind of hidden behind a paywall that most people don't have access to.
Yeah.
So defense is still kind of underrated and undervalued market-wise.
Agreed.
I think given the fact that he's a very strong two-way impact player, I think it's more than worthy contract for what he's going to give you, assuming he's healthy. And factor in the fact that the cap is only going to rise crazy amounts in the next several years. And we'll probably see some smoothing element put in this next offseason to make sure that there's not a crazy jump when the new TV deal actually comes in. This contract is not that bad at all under those circumstances. And when you factor in what other two-way guys have been getting on the market so far, I mean, Avery Bradley, he's not the offensive player that Gordon Hayward is, but defensively he's much better.
Yeah.
So they kind of equal out in that regard. But Gordon Hayward got a max offer sheet. Lance Stevenson, even with the knucklehead discount, got a pretty good contract.
Look at Kemba. Alec Burks. Both those guys made like $12 million-ish.
Although neither of those guys are two-way wings, but those are the kind of contracts that are coming out now.
Yeah.
And part of that is because teams know the cap is going to rise, so they're loosening the purse strings a little bit more, I think, in the sense if a player or their agent is saying, hey, we gotta get an extra $2 million or $4 million over these couple years. I think teams are more open now to being like, you know what, F it. It's not that big a deal. We want this guy. We'll concede when we might otherwise not have previously, because we know with that new TV deal, we'll be fine.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of Bradley, how is this packed backcourt with a lot of duplication of skill sets in Rondo, Bradley, Marcus Smart, and Evan Turner going to work together?
Yeah, and isn't Marcus Thornton in there too?
Yes, and Marcus Thornton.
Yeah, so there's 5 of them. Rondo and Bradley is going to work like Rondo and Bradley.
Yes.
We've seen that. We know how it works. It works well. You have anytime you can get 2 players who can both be great defenders for their position, especially Avery Bradley, who is just amazing at the defensive end of the floor. Defensively, they're both killers, and offensively, they both have really unique skill sets. That's fine. I'm a bit more concerned about their backcourt rotation. Evan Turner basically kind of crapped the bed in Indiana. It wasn't a very good showing for him. A lot of problems with shot selection there, and plus he's kind of a ball-dominant guy. He doesn't really have the spacing ability, or really, I haven't seen him do anything that great off ball.
Yeah.
That's not really his game. Marcus Smart is another guy who I haven't seen him really do anything great off ball, nor is he a spacing threat.
Yarp.
So you can't really, the guy has to have the ball in his hands. Marcus Thornton's a bit better in that regard. And plus Marcus to Marcus.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty cool. But I'm not super sold on putting Smart and Evan Turner together for long stretches. I think that can be problematic.
I think, though, there will be some staggering of minutes so that Smart gets to spend some time with Bradley and Evan Turner gets to spend some time with Bradley. But because Rondo, Smart, and Turner all are on-ball dominant guys and not particularly adept off-ball, here's the funny thing. Rondo's the best shooter out of those 3 off-ball.
Yep.
Let that sink in. So you can't really play Rondo and Smart or Rondo and Turner or Smart and Turner together too much, at least not without 3 floor spacing guys around them.
Yeah.
So we'll probably see some staggering of minutes. And to be honest, I would think by the time Rondo's kind of 100%, and Smart comes back from the injury, Turner's minutes will probably go down.
Yeah. So with the rising salary cap, would it be smart for Jeff Green to pick up his $9.4 million player option?
Considering that the player option would then take him to the 2016 offseason, it would be very smart for him, because that 2016 offseason is where we're going to see the first real jump. Like I said, there'll probably be some sort of smoothing element put in place in this next offseason just to make sure that it's not a crazy jump. But trust me, in 2016, that cap is going to jump.
Yeah.
And it's going to behoove free agents in that offseason, or with the opportunity to get into that offseason, because that cap space, even if they just sign a mid-level exception or anything that's kind of tied as a percentage of the cap, it's going to be better paying for them than if they sign a contract and lock in long-term money before that off-season, because they're not going to be getting as high a percentage of the higher cap.
Yep.
So it'd be smart for him to do that. The only way it might not work is if he... Well, actually, no. Even if he has a killer year this year, I'm sure he's probably going to think he can have another killer year the next year. So yep. I don't think there's very much likelihood that he wouldn't pick it up and become a free agent in that 2016 offseason.
Cool.
Yep. Speaking of off seasons, they usually come with moves.
Yeah.
Do you think either in next offseason or during this season, the Celtics might try to make a move to acquire a rim protector to take their defense to the next level?
I don't know. I think a lot of it depends on draft strategy. And to be totally honest, I really don't know. I don't think Jaleel's that like a huge rim protector guy, is he?
Honestly, I want to see what he does against colleges before I project rim protection, just because it's one thing on the high school level, even if you're playing high-level high school stuff, you're probably playing against some people who aren't like even remotely big enough to really pose a threat to a rim protector. So those numbers are probably inflated. So for this incoming freshman collegiate class, it's hard to say if they're going to be good rim protectors or not. Kind of got to wait. I know, like
Willie Cauley-Stein is supposed to be a rim protector. I'm personally not the biggest Willie Cauley-Stein fan, despite the name. Got to have love for Matt Williams, but they might address that in the draft. That is definitely one area where they could stand to improve. They might. I don't know. There are a lot of big name rim protectors in this upcoming free agent class, but I don't think they go after. I don't know if they go after any or not.
Yeah,
I don't know where they're at. I don't think they make any trades because I really don't know who they have that other people would want, that they would want to give up, unless it's a guy like Rondo.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they make any trades this season. It might be something they look to draft. And again, with all the rookies, or not rookies, but all the freshmen, college rookies coming in for this draft class, it's kind of a wait and see. So I guess we'll just have to, wait and see.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, do you think Rajon Rondo stays in Boston?
This year, yes. Next year, no. I think Rondo is a very competitive guy. And while I think he really likes Boston and the organization, I also think he doesn't want to be part of a rebuilding style.
The guy doesn't like to lose.
Yeah, he doesn't want to lose. So I think he's going to leave in free agency. But I'm not 100% certain on that because no one really knows other than, perhaps Rondo. And even Rondo might not know right now because maybe in free agency, the best offers given to him are from teams that aren't going to be that much better than the Celtics.
Yeah.
But that said, I don't think Rondo is going to be a Celtic this time next year.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Having said that, this time every video is our 20, 50, 80 predictions, where we say things that are 20%, 50%, and 80% likely to occur for this season. Josh, take it away, man.
So I think it's 20% likely that Brad Stevens gets some Coach of the Year votes this year. I don't think the Celtics are going to be good enough for him to get a lot of them, but I think they'll see an improvement in record, if only in part because Rondo is going to be back and Bradley hopefully won't miss 22 games. So their record should be better. He's an awesome coach. He's got them playing really smart and I wouldn't necessarily use the term fun, but for a bad team, they're fun.
Yeah.
So I think with improvement, he could get some Coach of the Year votes.
Yep.
I think it's 50% likely, like I mentioned just a moment ago, that Rondo isn't a Celtic by this time next year.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's 80% likely that Marcus Smart makes one of the all-rookie teams.
Yeah, that's pretty much a lock.
Yeah, it'd be tough maybe for him to make the first rookie team, but I think it's practically guaranteed that he's going to have the opportunity and the minutes given to him to make at least that second rookie team.
Yeah, and hopefully for Celtics fans, he can contribute to my first prediction, which is that continuity, a couple of the upgrades that they made in the offseason, internal development from guys like Sullinger and Olynyk, Rajon Rondo and Avery Bradley, hopefully playing a full year, Brad Stevens keep on being awesome, and all of this contributes to the Celtics being a fringe 8th seed contender. So like 35 games.
Yep, that's what fringe playoff contender in the East is.
The Eastern Conference.
Yes. But yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Having said that, that is a lot of stuff that would need to go right. So 20%.
Yeah.
I think that's 50% likely that Avery Bradley or Rajon Rondo makes the all-defensive first team.
That's bold, just in terms of how many players kind of are in that mix and perception. I think on a actual impact-wise, I absolutely agree. Those two guys are more than worthy of inclusion in the discussion for that all-defensive first team. But I'm not sure they'll get the respect or the positive perception for that.
Because of a losing team?
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from. That's why it's 50%.
Yeah.
And I think it's 80% likely, and this is another kind of bold one, that Rajon Rondo makes an All-NBA and All-Star team. And I think there's a couple of reasons for this. For one, a lot of the scoring on this team isn't really all that great. And so far throughout the season, Rajon Rondo is in about his typical role as a scorer. But again, 6 games. I wouldn't be surprised if his offensive scoring load kind of picked up a bit, just because, I mean, Jeff Green and Avery Bradley are not Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen. And then his rebounding, I think, is also going to go up quite a bit too, just because Kennedy Olynyk and Jared Sullinger are not Kevin Garnett and Kendrick Perkins. So good Kendrick Perkins, back when he was actually looked awesome. So I think his rebounding is going to go up. He's averaging 8 rebounds per game through the first 6 games. That obviously won't continue, but 6 or maybe even like 6.5 wouldn't be too shocking considering his averages. Yeah. And if you can average 14, 10, and 6.5, that's really good.
Yeah.
In terms of box score stats, and that's what all that stuff is based on.
Yeah. And if the Celtics do improve enough to at least be in that last kind of battle for the 8th spot, that might be enough to get him an All-NBA vote.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think this team's going to be very good. I'll say that they will be the best bad team in basketball. Still a bad team, though.
I think Brad Stevens is going to ensure that these Celtics play in a smart manner, and like you mentioned, they'll be a fun, good bad team, but they're still going to need more talent to actually return to the ranks of good teams.
Yeah, it won't be embarrassing.
No.
And if you didn't think this video was embarrassing, maybe consider leaving a thumbs up. If you thought it was embarrassing, maybe put a thumbs down on it. Either way, maybe leave a comment saying why, or how cool you think Josh's green Celtics Band-Aid is. If you like this video, maybe consider sharing it with your friends on Skype, email, carrier pigeon, Twitter, Morse code.
Definitely carrier pigeon.
Exactly.
Let's bring it back, people.
Yeah, let's do it. And then if you like this video, you should also consider subscribing. It helps us out a lot, and you get to see all of our future videos. You get notifications. It's pretty awesome. I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching.
Take care, everyone.